Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing High Fidelity, directed by Stephen Frears. We have Super, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and finally, newly released, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. All those 4 movies directed by James Gunn. It's going to be a great show, folks, so stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay over here. How's it going over there on that side of the table?
This is falling apart.
The table is falling apart as we speak.
We have any carpenters out there? We're taking applications.
That's okay. We want everyone to know just how shit this is over here. How are your week of movies, man?
Music-filled week. Licensed soundtrack out the wazoo.
Big time with the Guardians.
Yeah. And that was also the logic with High Fidelity, too. So I could have probably done Slither by James Gunn. That would be another 5th, but I don't know. I feel like these movies are so licensed music based.
Big time.
That's honestly the outlier there.
Okay, so let's get into it right away. We will jump into the 2000s High Fidelity, directed by Stephen Frears. And was that really your only reason for Guardians of the Galaxy is so like music-based that you just went for a music movie?
Yeah. It was a little bit Stephen Frears, not much experience with him. Wanted to give QC Boy a shot.
I was going to say, we got John Cusack. I was going to say torture me, but you had to watch the movie. You just tortured yourself.
Yeah, no. And honestly, he redeemed himself a little bit in this. I thought this was a good movie.
All right, so High Fidelity. How'd you like?
Yeah, it was a good time. Another surprising watch because, folks, this is a director I have no experience with, and I really enjoyed when I came across this with Alexander Payne, Payne for Sideways, and yet again here with Stephen Frears. So much so that I don't even recognize his top titles on IMDb. I don't know, Tom. Do you recognize anything that he's also done a lot of British stuff? He did The Queen. That's about it.
Queen the show?
No, The Queen the movie, like 2006.
That was a big one. That was very Oscar bait.
Yeah.
No, Stephen Frears. I didn't really know the name that much.
Yeah.
I knew this movie. Mm-hmm. Like I knew this movie was a thing, but not really.
Yeah, no. I think it's exciting for me just because, believe me, I love watching directors I'm comfortable with and doing director studies, but equally, that well's going to dry out sometimes, so finding new directors...
You got a long way to go. Don't worry. You got nothing to worry about here.
I don't know why I've had this image, especially on these heavy franchise weeks, of Clockwork Orange, of just me being strapped in the chair and them re-watering my eyes so I can watch more movies. That's definitely going to be the image for the coming Fast and Furious weeks. But High Fidelity is based on a book under the same name, and it also has a Hulu spinoff show with Zoe Kravitz in the starring role, where her mother, Lisa Bonet, is in this movie. So kind of a cute little connection there. But it was a watch this week because I knew this was going to be a soundtrack-heavy week, and there is no exception here. The setting is a record shop, Championship Vinyl, owned and operated by Rob Gordon, a cynical, sharp-witted lover boy who recently has been dumped by his long-term girlfriend. Like all music geeks, he's a little bit of a moody boy at heart. He can definitely get in his feelings a little bit. A former punk trying to make it in the world, we go through his past breakups before tackling the present issues. all of this is delivered to us in a fourth wall breaking narration. Cusack is speaking to us directly, a la a Fight Club or our recently covered Ferris Bueller. And there are just many, many iconic lines of top 5 this and top 5 that. Characters kind of talk in a Rolling Stone style listicle that makes, honestly, a great breakup movie and very entertaining. I thought this was a very cute romance, a cute breakup film, and has a pretty sharp script, believe it or not.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
You're taken by surprise. You were ready?
Well, a little bit. I mean, again, I knew the name of the movie, and I think people generally liked it. John Cusack looking at this camera and directly talking to you, I can't imagine it was very good.
But he sells it. I mean, believe me, I'd tell you otherwise. I'd rip into him, but he does. There's something about, if anything, this character Rob is kind of an asshole. He's kind of a dick. So I don't know. Maybe that plays into it. But I think I was in love with this film. It's because it is just a total music snob. This captures the exact feeling of walking into a record shop and instantaneously being judged. There's just such an elitist tone of the film, and I'm not even saying I agree with the choices, but
we've talked about it before.
Oh yeah,
it's much like that. It could be walking into a gun shop too.
It's just super intimidating.
Yes, and it's almost like, especially with record stores, you just have people. It's like, we get it.
Yeah,
you don't have any control of any other areas of your life. You know. You're not number one at anything else, but this definitely is.
Music.
Yeah, this is your record store, and you're making it very well known.
And that's what is captured to a absolute T in this film. I mean,
good.
Like flawlessly captured. I seriously have to give points for just such a realism, such a true to life, pompous attitude that petrifies anyone walking into a place like this in real life, and the story is kind of around assholes like that. So while I may not agree with the music hot takes of it, it really did capture a true to life thing, true to life aspect to that there. It's some real elitist nerd shit, or I guess the modern internet slang would be gatekeeping. So these are all gatekeepers. But let me tell you, it is a great script for this reason. In an exact way how we covered with Sideways, not to give Payne another shout out, Sideways using wine aficionado as a dialect.
Yeah. I was going to say Paul Giamatti's kind of how he was such a wine snob and up his own ass about it. Yeah, you like that.
And very much here, it works in the same way. This perfectly adapts hipster music tastes and opinions that honestly still float around record shops today, 23 years later. So again, I was really floored with just how true to life, and clearly that's a lot of credit to Nick Hornby being the author.
A lot of people on the screenplay, though. They have 4 people working on the screenplay.
Yeah.
Which is a decent amount.
That is.
But that's good that it was snappy. I mean, it's a longer movie than I thought. I mean, it's an hour and 53, but I just thought it was more close to about an hour and a half.
Sure, like a rom-com, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's good that you had no problem with the pacing.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. You're
one to spot that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's become your job.
to immediately highlight it. I would say a lot of praise that I have for this film should be credited to that book and author Nick Hornby. This is just an excellent script, and though the music references may fly over most of the audience's heads, it's how it's presented that works best here. This fourth wall breaking, I'm totally with you. It could either be annoying or it can work.
Yeah, we talked about it in the past too.
Yeah. And it's tough because I think it's really in the eyes of the beholder, whether you're annoyed by this character or not. I've stayed strong on like a Ferris Bueller that I think it does work because of the charm. Here, maybe it's a little bit more up in the air. There is almost a Chuck Palahniuk Fight Club style aspect that I really loved personally. The movie has a hyper cynical narration, and I found that endlessly fun. And though Rob is pretty hard to love sometimes in those moments, I felt it worked at defining his character as kind of a muddy guy. It's a breakup film, so he kind of has a part to play here. He's not a white knight or anything like that. He's a former punk, then turned DJ, then turned record shop owner with kind of asshole opinions. Right. I feel like this narration, why it worked for me is because yes, he's cynical, yes, he's sharp-witted, but when he says a hot take, it chips equally away at him as well. It really defines his character as not perfect in any kind of way.
I think that's good. I think for who the character is, you need that too.
Yeah.
A lot with that fourth wall breaking, it's so much in the confidence of the person delivering it.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Where it oozes off of Ferris Bueller.
Right. He's got to sell it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, this sold me on old QC boy. He's pretty great in this. And I think it's because he's just given such a platform to, really rock this character, really take on the role. And believe it or not, I think it really does work. So I would say throughout the film, especially as the more rom-com elements come in, it does kind of flip-flop enjoyment in enjoyment a few times because, like I said, his character's a real dick and kind of ruins his own charm sometimes. But I would say it's a really good role for him, and I can't say that I was annoyed by him either, which, half the reason, diving into this.
That's massive.
Yeah. We also get some very early Jack Black action, and he is just in his prime Tenacious D goodness. I would say if you are a fan of Jack Black, it's almost a watch for him. He's not even like a main character. He's definitely in supporting territory, but...
he might be best when it comes to supporting.
Yeah,
like in Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot.
Course, yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking because this came out in 2000. I'm thinking like Shallow Hal days.
Right.
He's in that.
Yep.
Although I guess he's more of a main character there.
Yeah, but he's it's able to being able to rock these hot take music opinions, berating people that come into the record shop, and then just be so Jack Black about it. Like I said, I mean, if you are at all a fan of Jack Black, this is a watch for you, folks.
He's been coming in hot lately. Bowser, he played Bowser with Super Mario.
Yeah. So we're seeing hopefully another Jack Black rise, but a really good time with them. Now, this film, like all movies this week, tested my rules about licensed soundtracks, and boy oh boy is this one chock full of music. Maybe the most out of all these films, believe it or not.
Yeah, just naturally, yeah.
Yeah. Usually I will give a pass if it is explained somehow or it's playing within the setting. But like I said, it was so much that it really tested it. I would say my... not excuses, but my reasoning for maybe where it works. On one level, it's about a record shop. The owner is a vinyl head going through a breakup. He's processing this through music. And the music selection is very eclectic, very deep cut. So, there are some things that you can call it a pass for. Unexpected to boot, the music is done by Howard Shore.
It is not, is it?
I swear to God. And I went extra deep in this. Did he actually choose the light? He did.
He did.
He was behind it all. Unreal.
He pops up in the weirdest movies.
Yeah.
Obviously everyone knows.
It's like early Hans Zimmer. It's just...
Yeah,
I like getting around.
He's weird. I don't know if you can put him in the top 3 or top 4 of all time. I don't know
because of the history.
But he's weird. He does different stuff.
Yeah,
he's the main guy who did the score for That Thing You Do.
Oh, right.
I was putting a movie on the site the other day, I think, and then he was on there, and he's just like, he did this.
Yeah,
that's Howard Shore.
Yeah, and obviously you got to be a working professional, so you're gonna work on a lot of projects.
Of course, yeah.
But I don't know if that helped or hurt it, honestly, because I was like, I don't know.
Well, deep cuts are important too, because they're not just going for the smash and grab stuff.
Right, exactly. These are about music aficionados. These are a lot of there's not once that it plays something generic or mainstream. Even.
Right.
There's a lot of deep cuts, which is cool. But let me tell you, Tom, I mean, it really is just textbook Suicide Squad syndrome, just playing track after track. I mean, no matter how indie or unique the song was, I couldn't help but be distracted by it. And I don't know, I'm coming out with a positive score on this one. I think I might have been beaten into submission on my music rules after this week. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I tell you what, I think it's fair to say, when it comes to your movie reviews, I would say I know you best.
You're right.
Right? I am still confused what the outline, the rubric, the template is when it kind of comes. I know we talk about it often. It comes up often, but still, I still can't pick a movie and say it's going to hit or not hit for you. And this one, just because it's so music-based, I figured you're just tossing out in the wind and saying, obviously, this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm getting.
True. Very true. And I think that's why I'm okay with it ultimately.
Right. But it was a lot.
It's just a lot. I don't know. It's maybe about frequency, just how often it's put in there.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's okay. That's right.
It's one of those great moments, though, that we're figuring it out together. This is very much.
Well, I think with you, it's a deep, like we talked about always. We've been doing this now we still don't know. I mean, 5, 6 years.
Disputed.
We really don't know when it started.
Citation needed.
But the one thing is, no matter what it comes down to, it is a feeling in you that really hasn't changed all that much.
Right.
I think just sometimes it's hard to put a gauge on it.
Yeah. And especially with thinking with the Guardians of the Galaxy, I was like, well, if it's connected to something within the setting, that's usually a good kind of blanket pass. And then I think of things like Goodfellas, and it's just like, there's no explanation of it, but I still love it.
You love it.
So, if anything, I like kind of working this out because, it's the heart of the podcast. I watched 5 movies. This is what I'm bringing this week. This is what I'm, actively kind of, studying and watching. So, overall, though, I would say this film really, really is dynamite in its first 30 minutes, believe it or not. He's going through his top 5 breakups. Mm-hmm. And I just really would have loved if those first 30 minutes were the whole film. I think it would have been awesome. But eventually the rom-com sets in, the 2000s sets in, and that comes with some more predictable elements. Some of my gripes aside, I think this is a very sharp script, though, and a standout performance for John Cusack. Honestly, a watch well worth it. We're going to go ahead and give High Fidelity a 73.
Okay, so wow, okay, up into the 70s, pretty good. I mean, for people who just kind of starting to listen and everything like that, been catching on the past, because we see you, we also see you, Netherlands. We can see to our brothers and sisters down under too. We have some new listeners. 73%. It's a very good score.
Yeah.
We haven't really reiterated this in a while, but when you're in the 70%, so as far as the daily ratings are concerned, that is a very good score. That's a very good movie.
It's a good movie.
When you get into the 80s, these are movies that you should probably definitely go ahead and see. Like these are top notch, some of the best that are going to come out in the entire year.
Make time for it.
Sure, make time for. Because we say when you're over that 85% mark with us, you're in the must watches. No matter what audience you are, these films are hitting enough marks where they are true must-watch before you die, basically.
Get through it.
But that's kind of how we do things. We don't give away 90. We rarely give away 90s.
Sure.
So we have approaching 1,000 films rated, and there's about 12, 13 of them in the 90s. That's it.
And just how we want to utilize the landscape of 50s to 70s a lot more, where in film review, it's like, well, if it's a 7 out of 10 and below, it's not worth your time. You know what I mean? That's not using the space.
It's not using the space at all. You might as well just stick to 5 stars.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
So,
yeah, we definitely use the percentages.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, because there's so much nuance there. Mm-hmm. So just to give some of the newer listeners an idea of how we're scoring, 73 maybe for a more rotten site is really, really bad. 73 for the daily ratings is really quite good. So, very surprising. Cusack getting a 70.
I'm telling you. I don't know if I'm going to make some time. We got some busy weeks coming up, so I don't know if I'll get to another QZ movie. But
well, I'm excited to hear about this one. This will come up in the Tom Dailies at the end of the year for the Ryan.
Oh, really?
Well, because
you're planning ahead.
The Ryan Reynolds Award was almost the Ryan Reynolds Cusack Award.
Oh, okay.
But we only had one Cusack movie, which you kind of liked. Maybe that's how this is going to go, too. Yeah. Anyway, High Fidelity, 73%. We'll keep it going here. Let's jump to our first James Gunn film. And Vin, why kind of did you pick this over some of his others? But this is 2010's Super. Mm-hmm. How do we like it?
Yeah, Super is kind of definitely has slipped into cult classic territory for sure. Other than the 2006 movie Slither, James Gunn doesn't have too much to pull from. There's always that forbidden, trashy reality dating show that he did where contestants try to win a role in a horror movie, but I'll let folks find that garbage themselves. Well, it's really bad.
Didn't even know he came from that.
Oh, yeah.
Why would MCU...
Not came from it, but...
did it?
Yeah. I think it was for one of the Saw sequels. I don't know.
Wow.
It's that's a weird part of the internet if you can find that. So with this, Rainn Wilson plays the lovable loser Frank, who works in a dead end job. loses his girl to a gangster and suffers from the occasional delusions, I guess as we all do. After a messed up vision from God, he becomes a slap-together crime-fighting vigilante, the Crimson Bolt. This attracts cops, gangsters he's pissed off, and a maniac, and I really mean maniac, fangirl sidekick played by Ellen Page, of course now Elliot Page. This movie is a really good example of why I think in those early days of Marvel's they were looking for directors that were doing maybe something exciting, something that could play to comic books. This is obviously in 2010, before Marvel's in full swing, pre-Avengers 1.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, this is really on.
Yeah, so I feel like this, honestly, was probably whether he tended for it or not, the best resume he could have even put forward for his work with Marvel and now DC.
And is the idea, is it because it's capes but funny?
It's like capes but brutal.
Okay.
It's like hold no punches how silly vigilante would really be, and how people would just get hurt by putting on a costume.
Is it Scott Pilgrim-y?
No, I don't think so.
All right, okay.
I mean, maybe some of the energy around how edits are done. There's like some pop-up text like blam, kapow, obviously trying to be it, but I feel like it's a different scope of a movie.
Okay.
So I will say, as a positive, Wilson and Page are actually pretty funny in this. There is something odd that works with them both being on screen, but some larger stars like Kevin Bacon and Liv Tyler will just leave you scratching your head based on why they were included at all. I just don't know. This movie was produced and licensed by IFC Films, and it definitely feels like that at times.
Okay.
It feels lower budget, not knocking IFC Films, but it just feels, I don't know. It just feels a little bit more rookie, which makes sense for Gunn at the time. But I'll tell you what, this is absolutely an R-rated dark comedy, but it's really amazing how you can see what works in Gunn's Marvel films. It all starts here. I don't know if I could pin Gunn's trademark down to just one thing, but I do know it's always going to be some mix of characters with good intentions screwing up a situation and then usually walking in slow motion to punk rock music while they do it. So it's an approximate trademark, but that's kind of his thing.
Okay.
It's lovable characters, they mess it up, and then guess what? They get a slow-mo walk-off with music playing.
It's kind of true. It's a DNA. We're learning a lot from him or about him.
Yeah. This movie also shows Gunn's ability to pull from talent in his friend pool. The usual faces of Michael Rooker, Nathan Fillion, and of course his brother Sean Gunn all start making frequent appearances moving forward in his films. And I think that was also interesting seeing that here, that in a lower production, that's maybe he did that possibly cutting corners or budget constraints, but clearly he likes working with them and he brings them into basically every Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So, but let me stress, a Marvel film this is not. This is very violent, gory, and has a fair amount of gross out humor. It's actually impressive how much this film resembles the third Guardians of the Galaxy in so many years later. That third one is definitely an anomaly for good and bad of just how much it is a James Gunn film, and I can say that pretty definitively after watching them all in a row.
Okay, I'm very excited to hear about Volume 3.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's an amazing movie, but I'm glad I rewatched it in the context of this week. I would say it's a recommendation if you enjoy Wilson or Page on screen together, because I think it's a good comedic performance of them. And I would say maybe give it a watch if you want to see a more amateur take on the formula that becomes Gunn's career in the 2010s onward. We're going to go ahead and give Super 2010 a 57.
Okay, 57, not bad.
Yeah,
crossing the 50% threshold.
I think the film digs its own grave in a few parts. That if you've seen this film, it's like, okay, it's not a watch for everyone, but I think it's an interesting watch.
Yeah, and definitely deserving of its rated R.
Yeah,
rating.
For sure.
Okay, Vin. All right, so
the long winter of Guardians. We're going in.
Okay, folks. So we're jumping ahead. This is 2014, and we're just going to do all three of them. Let's start with the first one, Guardians of the Galaxy. I believe these are all rated PG-13, all over 2 hours long. Let's just step into it as long as you want through the first one, or set us up, or whatever your pace is, Vin. We'll follow along throughout this.
It's all the Marvel homework.
The trilogy, exactly. 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, so at this point in his career, this is easily the biggest movie James Gunn has done. And I would say, despite its sci-fi leanings, I'm really not a huge fanboy for these films. I mean, Guardians 1 specifically is kind of considered definitely in the top 5, a holy grail of the MCU.
Yeah, it's because, I mean, when this came out, it shocked people that it was actually good.
Right,
You know, because he swings for it. He swings for the laughs, for the jokes, for the interplay with the music and everything like that. And people were shocked how well it worked. I still remember at the time, you liked it, but you were not on cloud nine like a lot of other people were.
Right.
You know, you were definitely more tame about it.
And, you know, I cannot overstate the impact that this had on Marvel and on the MCU.
Like as a whole.
The kitschy jokes were clocked up, more music was clocked up. To a certain extent, after watching these films all in order, the Russo brothers owe a lot to what Gunn did, because that's what they were able to sprinkle to kind of switch things up for Endgame and Infinity War, to give it some personality through music choices, interlaying comedic sides of it.
Yeah, is it for the best though?
Right,
You
but
know?
nonetheless, that impact is there.
Do you think this impacted so much as DC universe? With Suicide Squad and the terrible things in there. You know what I mean?
Tough to say definitively. A lot of people say that specifically Guardians of the Galaxy 2014 spooked Suicide Squad to make it more music-based. So that's an unfortunate domino.
Maybe we hate this movie. Maybe we absolutely...
Yeah, maybe that's a very unfortunate domino effect. Or butterfly effect.
I want Avengers Endgame to be one of the most serious movies. I want it to be brutal, realist, real.
Right.
It's the humor and the comedy, that Marvel kish that I can't stand.
Yeah,
okay.
it's true.
Interesting.
But nonetheless, I cannot overstate the success of this film having a ripple effect. And for people that love it, that's really where a lot of that styling came from, or at least that styling was there and then clocked up. Guardians of the Galaxy 2014 can be credited with so much of what the MCU is today: jokes, licensed music, creative uses of characters, deep-cut references to the comics. The list goes on. And I think for some of those latter ones, the latter pieces, using a character creatively, maybe that doesn't line up with the comics, using deep-cut references to comics, I think that's on the positive side. I think that we can credit Thor being used in a comedic way, and how it works sometimes. Well, sometimes. Basically just Ragnarok, but yeah. But yeah, that's just from a bird's eye, again, the serious ripple effect that this had.
Yeah, no doubt that.
Before Infinity Stones were the MacGuffin for the whole MCU, this movie did it before it was cool. The Power Stone is introduced as the main plot device here, with everyone from space pirates, galactic cops, the Kree, and Thanos himself chasing after it. But it falls into the hand of one plucky rogue, Peter Quill, and is soon to be band of heroes, the Guardians of the Galaxy. For those unfamiliar with the roster of the team, it fluctuates quite a bit in the comics. It's not one set team like we see, basically only a growing team in these movies. And this film is shown the film series basically progresses by showing new characters adding to that same roster. Our starting lineup includes Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, played by a newly buff at the time, Chris Pratt. That was big news. He took his shirt off. That was big news.
It was.
It feels weird now to say those things where, like, everyone, like, Paul Rudd is buff,
I was thinking about this the other day, I know, because basically... You had Andy from Parks and Rec, Chris Pratt, and then he did not Black Hawk Down. Oh my gosh!
Oh yes, it was
the SEAL Team 6 movie. I can't remember what it is, but he did that where he got ripped, and people were like, "Whoa!" And the next thing you know, boom, Guardians of the Galaxy, big movie, shirt off.
Yep. And that's, of course, a meme in itself of Marvel films, that there's always a guy with the shirt off, you know. They gotta throw the eye candy out there. And back to the roster. Daughter... No. I brought it up. Daughter of Thanos, Gamora, played by Zoe Saldana. Drax the Destroyer, an early role for Dave Bautista, and an early clicking role of showing his comedic chops. Genetic freak and weapon experts Rocket Raccoon, voiced by Bradley Cooper, and lastly, the living tree and living meme Groot, voiced by Vin Diesel himself. We'll be spending a lot of time with Mr. Diesel in the next few weeks. Can't wait.
I always like the connective tissue between these episodes.
It is. It's enjoyable. It's a narrative.
So right off the bat, I'll say, looking at all three films, because I just want to know going forward, basically, out of main crew, who do we hate the most?
Ooh, who do we hate the most? Probably Rocket Raccoon.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. The thing is, he's a big focus in 3, so...
he's my favorite.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I really like Bradley Cooper.
Yep.
He's a Philly boy as well. Groot, I don't feel like any of the other characters are anything.
Okay. Interesting.
Like, everyone talks about, Dave Bautista is in the Marvel, but, like, is he in the Marvel? Like, you paste anybody up, he barely does anything, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I disagree. I think he brings a lot of comedy chop to it.
Who do you like most out of the crew?
It's maybe Dave Bautista. It's so funny.
Just so we know where we are. I won't interrupt anymore.
We'll have a list on the website. Our Marvel rankings, favorite characters.
I don't like Robot Sister. I'm not the biggest fan of Robot Sister.
Oh, that's amazing. I will try to refer to as Robot Sister for the remaining of the episode. Okay. Nebula, she's dicey character. I will say, in hindsight, Volume 3 does so much with everyone as far as character development that I'll admit that they're all kind of equaled out in a way. No one's really a weak spot. Like, I would agree, Volume 2 and Volume 1 kind of have, you can play favorites.
Well, Groot is always weak. Inherently, because he can't speak.
Yeah. I mean, he's there for the cutesiness, basically.
Yeah, but the toys.
Bingo. You said it for me. I think in comparison to Marvel films coming out at the time, mainly the train wreck that is Age of Ultron in a similar release schedule, nearly everyone is able to give a decent performance to good performance on screen. I would say some standouts are, for me, like I said, Dave Bautista as Drax. Didn't know you're going to shit on him at all. And I think why this is a standout for me is because, I mean, I don't know, you watch what was the Knives Out sequel?
He's good in the Knives Out sequel,
right? But those comedy
White Lotus,
chops,
no, Glass Lotus, no, Glass Onion.
There, different plants. There is a degree there that, I mean, all the comedy chops they start in 2014 with Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know, that's worthy of some praise. Did you ever actually laugh? I think I did.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then I stand corrected.
I'm losing credit. I'm becoming the Marvel shill. But yeah, I think it's a decent performance just because he's such a, I don't know.
He's a character like
he's
that. A character.
He's the first one to really do it too. You see a similar move for John Cena, but John Cena was doing plenty of like buff things before he tries to do this comedy break.
Yeah, you're right.
It's similar with The Rock.
You're right.
God forbid.
Well, Rock was early on doing things.
God forbid we bring up Triple H and I think Blade 3. Blade Trinity.
Triple H?
Oh, yeah.
What is Triple H?
Triple H is a wrestler. You know, I mean, he's not in anything. No. But yeah, I liked seeing that evolution for him. Other standout, there's only 2 for me, is Michael Rooker as Peter's adopted father, Yondu. Honestly, he's just a great secondary villain and always a blast to see him thrown in. It's a cool character. I don't know too much about comic lore with Guardians, but I gotta say, I mean, in addition to Rooker being a usual friend that shows up in basically he was thrown in the Suicide Squad in the very beginning for James Gunn.
Right.
He earns his spot. He's not just like this like nepotism, like he's just, hey, let me put my friend in the movie. He earns his spot, and I think Yondu is a great example of that. I would say where this film, kind of boil it down, where this film works best, especially in the early moments, is fun space bounty hunting. I think that's where it works best. Guardians is about having a small job to do that isn't going to get eroded by comedy, because the focus is undeniably comedy. It's not slapstick, but it's supposed to be silly. So when the job is smaller, usually in the earlier parts of these films, the intro to it, when they're tackling something, I think that's where it really works best, because the comedy is not taking away from the forced drama or the forced emotion or anything like that. I feel in each of these films, when the larger world-ending plot comes into play, everything gets weaker. The fun within the group chemistry, and the comedy as a whole. Definitely James Gunn's very specific comedy writing.
It's almost, I was thinking about this week. I really feel like Guardians of the Galaxy would be a phenomenal TV series, much like a Firefly.
You read my mind.
Yeah, okay.
You read my mind. Wow.
Was Firefly in your mind, too?
I was thinking more Mando,
like
just because it was like, job-based.
Sure.
But
yeah.
I mean, Firefly's a great call. Also, a tie to Nathan
I know,
Fillion.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, nail.
Because you're right.
Yeah.
Being with the team and just going from like to job or mission to mission, that's where the fun is.
Absolutely.
When you incorporate it with what you got to do, the MCU business,
certainly tying into MCU lore as well. Falls under the same category.
Yeah, exactly. If it was a TV show, it could kind of just be itself.
Wow, that's amazing. We're gonna have to run the notes by you first. But yeah, I really can't help but feel the same. I feel like that playing it out, lower stakes, but still important stakes, and character building moments, the comedy not eroding at it, it just feels like in a world where they could do Guardians of the Galaxy as an episodic space adventure, that would be perfect. In hindsight, I would say with Gunn having decent success running the show Peacemaker, maybe one day we could still get that after his run with DC. Who knows?
Yeah, sure.
So, I would say I have 3 different production notes that I want to dive into, a little good, bad, and ugly. One aspect that I surprisingly don't hear a lot of praise for is sci-fi design. I really enjoyed the look of so much across all 3 of these films. Ships, aliens, guns, it all looks great. I would say ships probably the biggest out of all of these. I mean, I can't tell you the name of a ship like, the Millennium Falcon or something like that. It doesn't have the,
name recognition. That
iconic aspect. But as far as the look of it, this is really cool design, and a design of its own. I can't really point to saying like, oh, he's ripping this off from there. It's kind of all its own thing. So it's always surprising me that none of these films really get praise in that way. So I want to throw that out there because it's something that I do appreciate about it.
Something you wouldn't expect either.
Yeah.
Because you think it would be more, just
cookie cutter.
Exactly.
Yeah. For the bad, this doesn't really have to have great fight choreography, but it really doesn't have great fight choreography. Maybe I'm expecting too much from Marvel at the time. I mean, 2014 Marvel, it did have Winter Soldier, which is kind of an outlier, but yeah, it's just very boring. I feel like action scenes aren't really the greatest. This will actually change into big praise, though, for Volume 3, which was great to see. And finally, of course, probably the most defining element of the whole franchise is the music. Like I said, and like I hinted at already, I'll give credit to it being tied to Peter's Walkman and being exclusively late 70s music. I like the focus there. Obviously, being the Walkman isn't up to, he's not getting new tapes, so I like that focus. But sometimes I just feel it's out of place, and you can feel Gunn simply just cannot help himself in shooting the same slow motion music back scenes with people walking. He just loves this like Reservoir Dogs style shot of just people walking in slow motion to a cool music track. And I get it.
Yeah.
If I was a filmmaker, I'd like those scenes too. Growing up on a Scorsese, I like those scenes, but it's just he can't help himself. It's in every one of these films.
It's truly good directors that know how to use it and when to use it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was just watching. It's my new hate watch. It's my new hate.
Oh, nice.
Like most hated movie right now.
Okay.
Which is Kong Skull Island.
Oh, that's your most hated. That's amazing.
Right about now, yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
I didn't realize just how truly god-awful that movie is.
Wow.
But same symptom of just trying to get a cool shot. Everything they can, over and over and over again. Give us a slow-mo, pretty images, some music.
Yeah.
It really...
A badass song. And it's not even judging the little parts of that. It's just that it's formulaic in how it's done.
Right, but it's like it's screaming laziness at you. I mean, it just is seeping out of the screen. Laziness, you know?
I love it. I mean, the hot take on Skull. We got collateral damage. Yeah. No one expected Kong Skull Island to get damaged.
Oh, man.
You know, they just announced a second Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, throwback to... Did we post that? Was that like for episode 1? Or was that in the proto episode?
That might have been one of the proto... No, that made it in.
Okay,
I think that's episode 1 or 2, maybe.
Good. Folks at home, just a little. We have early episodes that probably won't ever see the light of day.
Probably
that were just like really, really just trying to nail down the process, the quality of the sound, all that stuff. So,
and when you hear how bad the first 5 episodes are, you can only imagine.
I haven't revisited in a while. If I need to get knocked down a peg, then I need to be a little bit more humble. I'll listen to those. But yeah, the observation there is he just cannot help himself. I would say with that said, we have plenty more Guardians to get to, plenty more gun discussion to get to. For now, we're going to go ahead and give Guardians of the Galaxy 2014 a 68.
Okay. That's I think that's very that's fair.
Okay.
Probably a little bit higher than I would give it, but I think
fair.
you're in a very... That's a good territory.
Yeah, and not to spoiler to the scores themselves. I'm watching these movies all the way through. They all kind of hit in a very similar category. It is all circling a same feeling, honestly, that I feel kind of identical moving from film to film. Maybe that's a little sacrilegious again because Marvel fans... Guardians is like a top 5 no matter what, and they really, really adore this film.
That's why I like the 68, because it brings it back down to earth.
Okay.
Because it's not that good. I'm sorry. When it was new, whatever, it's 9 years later, it's not that good. And that's how much praise it was getting. It's too much.
Yeah, maybe a little bit overhyped kind of scenario.
Yeah. So 68 for the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's keep it going here. It's kind of like one big review. This is 3 years later. This is 2017. I have a very, very special, unique relationship with this film. I have never seen it. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Vin?
It probably never will.
How was it?
It's real simple, folks. More the same, and some of it works better, some of it's worse, basically. This was my exact thought when I saw Volume 2 leading up to Infinity War. On a rewatch, sadly, not too much has changed. I feel like... Again, it's really just more of the same, and that sounds maybe like a hard knock to it, but at the same time, I think with more of a realistic kind of approach to the score, I more of a I don't know, kind of taking in multiple perspectives here. I feel like again these films all kind of fit in the same area for me.
They do. I mean, you could watch them as. Yeah, they're all very similar. They're kind of all one big movie, basically. They, I would say, we have some more characters and just further character development and everything like that, and always trying to get a bigger, better story, basically.
Yeah,
you know.
Basically, I'll say knowing Gunn's other work a bit better now, I can appreciate when he builds up characters with emotion, but many aspects have become weaker either through repetition or just feeling too MCU safe. I feel like this is the most MCU of all the 3 movies, with 3 being once again not having that problem at all. 3 is out there, not having an issue with being compared to other MCU films. So we enter this story with the Guardians in full swing, taking on jobs in space and bickering like the dysfunctional family they are. Through these jobs, Star-Lord finds his long-lost dad, a powerful Eternal named Ego, played by Kurt Russell. But with both his old gang and an angry client after him, quality time with his reunited father is under the gun. Much like the Kree, Thanos, and other galactic-scale threats, introducing Ego was an important step for the MCU, pushing the limits of what their on-screen characters are and how that translates from who these characters are in the comic book. A transgalactic organism that is the size of a planet. It may sound right at home in a comic book, but that's pretty bold to put in front of the average movie-going audience in 2017. I feel like this is a big stretch. The fact that it works at all is important. I will say it does work, despite being so out there as, a real, like, comic book character. Ego is something else.
Right,
so.
right.
Now, nonetheless, I'm happy to see Kurt Russell in this. Good role, doing a good job. As I still suffer from frequent fever dreams of Escape from L.A. and
of
that
course.
terrible surfing scene.
Of course.
And the basketball scene. And, so every time Kurt Russell is in something good, there's a breath of relief. There's a sigh. It's all good here. And I like I said, I want to give credit to putting something so out there in something so much of a blockbuster. I kind of want to give, that's cool. I want to give props to that.
No, I like it. I would this would be a great episode if it was a series,
Yeah.
It's just Star Trek.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we get it in movies and not
come
and
to
not
a new
episode.
planet and yeah.
Right. So, and yeah, Kurt Russell, I think, was a good addition and everything like that. Again, I haven't seen it. Did he look overly ridiculous, do you think?
How so? Like a beard?
No, it's like it's like wardrobe and everything like that.
No.
It's all comical and fun and whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it was. It definitely didn't like distract me or anything.
Okay,
like
right.
that. So, again, I mean, visual design here, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's a compliment because the sci-fi is so wild and so unique. That you can't really track it back to saying, "Oh, this is a homage to this," or "On the Shoulders of Giants." It's really its own thing altogether. So, I would say everyone in the crew gets a lot more character development, but of course, this is a story about Peter's father, so he really does take center focus. And we have some new characters introduced that will be pivotal for the MCU films around the bend. We get more time with. Oh man, I already forgot it. What'd you call Nebula?
Robot sister.
Robot sister.
I mean, that's
awesome.
That's what it is.
We get more time with Robot Sister, the cyber assassin and Gamora's sister. Through her character development, and that's of course played by Karen Gilliam. And Drax is given a comedic counterpart in the alien empath Mantis, played by the lovely Palm Clementif. Folks, allow me a quick sidebar. Palm, your beauty is only matched
beautiful.
by my hatred of pointless music and film, and listeners of the show will know how serious that is. Your French and Korean ethnic background leaves me utterly intoxicated, and I would give you absolutely 100% of my heart and soul. Perhaps now that Volume 3 has wrapped up, we can settle down in the French Riviera and have 5 to 7 kids as beautiful as you. Sincerely, Vincent Thomas Daly.
Wow. I'll put it in the newsletter. Maybe she's...
Yeah! That's what I mean. She's really... I mean, man. I mean, I'm all right on Mantis. Look up her IMDb.
No, she's beautiful. She's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Moving on.
Sorry, Emma Stone.
Yeah. Maybe not dethroned, but... We'll see. Moving on, though. I have some scattered notes that I didn't really know how to group together on this. These movies are all very messy, so I'm just going to kind of go through some of these. Starting off, I think all of these 3 movies have a real problem with fake-out deaths. I'll give credit to Gunn for even going in that territory, especially with how much plot armor is in the MCU. I always go back to Black Widow, and there's an explosion that someone should die and very much doesn't die, so I don't know. But even with this just being the second film... it's getting a bit stale. I feel like he does these fake outs constantly. It's just,
That's also like through and through Marvel.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. I mean, look at Endgame. I mean, that's like...
Yeah.
You know what I
Maybe
mean?
it is on the same note as Marvel then, because it's like... It's cheap.
It's just what they do. It's
Yeah.
cheap, and it's also in the moment when things are happening.
Yeah.
It's also trying. It's like they're trying way too hard.
Yeah.
To get people to cry.
Right. But what comes over my mind is not emotion; it's the messy business part of it. That
No, of
says
course.
like, oh, of course, there's got to be another movie.
Of course.
in this,
And that's right because you're a human. Right.
Yeah.
That's what all humans say after watching a terrible Marvel. This happens all the time with Marvel,
Yeah.
especially watching Endgame, and it's just like I can't. You're trying way too hard. We all know.
Yeah.
This person is too important. It's
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head, because that's really, I mean, when we finally go back to some of these Avenger titles, that's really a big issue I have with Infinity War. So specifically, I would say despite some pretty wild and cool sci-fi design, yet again, it just feels a little bit weaker and at best just more of the same. There's also some unexpected gross product placement in this one.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yes, some of it is for visual jokes, but there are a bit too many not to notice. And again, that is up to watcher preference here. It's something that I have an immediate trigger reaction.
You are fine-tuned. Like, yes. Like a bacteria microscope.
Finding the business, seeing the cut checks. But yeah, that's some of the notes were, I didn't know where to put those, but I really had to get that across. I would say it's a hard choice scoring this one. In ways, I think this movie could be a recommendation on its own, apart from the trilogy, but it's also probably the weakest out of the trilogy. Does that make sense? Is that confusing?
Yeah, it's one that can kind of stand alone. You can kind of just watch it to be itself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good.
Yeah.
It just means that the story is just kind of its own little thing.
Maybe self-contained.
Yeah.
Gives you enough character to pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, this movie has some of my favorite lines that Gunn has ever written. The Mary Poppins joke possibly being the best joke in all of the MCU. I'm not kidding. Like, it's good. I come back to my observation from the first film, in that the Guardians work best when the big plot isn't hanging above them. And I think this film is slightly weaker because of that, but only slightly. We're going to go ahead and give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 a 67.
Oh, wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, I thought it was going to be worse than that.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. But that's similar.
I think so.
That's actually really surprising to me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting. 6-7. Like I said, I didn't see it, unfortunately. Tried to. In fact, I believe I'll...
Your call. Your call if you're telling this.
No, the funny thing is, remember, I was trying to get you to go see it with me.
No way.
I remember I was on the phone with you.
Don't you bring me
I'm not bringing you into it. I kind of brought you into it. But, no, you don't remember being on the phone?
Oof.
I was on the phone with you being like, we got to go see it. Got to go see it.
Volume 2. I don't remember that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Maybe that's a story for another time.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a good story. The further we get away from it, the better the story is.
That's true.
But you are actually heavily involved with not being involved in the story of me not getting to go see Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Okay, folks. Hey, just remember, we're going off the value for value model here. Are you getting value from the podcast, the website, the newsletter? Then can you send us back some value through monetary support? You go to thedailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and through your donation, you are a producer, become a producer of the Daily Ratings. Mm-hmm. You can go ahead, write it a note right there in the donation page, and we'll read it right here on the podcast. Questions, comics, critiques, love, hate, doesn't matter.
You want to find out about that story, maybe donate it.
It's a good time. That's how we're doing it. We want to stay away from corporate advertising. I could speak for an hour on advertising and podcast advertising in total. It's a lot of people just don't care. So that's kind of just how we're doing it. We want to stay away from corporate ads. We want to know everything we say is us saying it. And that's pretty much it. If we ever
connection with you all. Yeah,
and if we ever talk about a movie, or if we bring up products or this, that, the other thing, no, we're not getting money from anything. It's just us talking here, and we're kind of building, a Daily Ratings family here. And through the producers that make this happen, it helps us keep us going and everything like that. Again, we're new. We're getting our name out there slowly and slowly and slowly. So another way to produce also, please just tell somebody about it. A family member, a friend, a cousin, a brother, a sister, whatever. The guy behind you talking about a movie. Hey, get us in the conversation. I always say that's where we want to be. It's at dailyratings.com. You go to the donations tab and become a producer. We thank you all so much. All right, Vin. So we are now, there was a larger, it must have been maybe because of COVID, but this was a bigger gap than I thought that they were going to give the Guardians as far as this third installment coming in. So it's our newly released, it's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I'm hearing all kinds of talk on it.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's all over the map.
It'll be good to consolidate it a little bit and figure out how you like it.
Yeah. I mean, it is wild. This is a wild film. Folks, if you are getting fatigued by me saying James Gunn's name, I hate to say it, it, but we're only just getting started. While he is up to bat to close out his wildly successful trilogy here with Volume 3, he is simultaneously juggling a massive responsibility. As we mentioned in our Black Adam and Shazam 2 review, Gunn has become a turncoat. He is now the co-CEO, remaking DC's cinematic universe yet again. Good work if you can get it, I guess.
I guess. Third reboot, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, some guys just like a challenge.
Yeah, this is, I would say, a definitive reboot, though, because they are obviously getting rid of, so much of the lore.
Reboot number 2. Kind of like proper reboot, okay.
Yeah.
Boy. See the guy, is he that good of a director? I don't know how they pick these people.
Yeah.
I mean, you look back to, the first big Marvel movie. Marvel Studios became a thing in 2005, 2006.
Yep.
And that's when they decided to have at this. Paramount were the dealers of some of the first movies.
Yep. And that's when the licenses were really scattered,
but before Disney came in and bought them out. But in those early days of Iron Man, it was being thrown around in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Tarantino sat down for a conversation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was another huge director that sat down for a conversation.
That's awesome.
That couldn't quite make it work.
Yeah.
Why they plucked these guys, I have no idea. But.
Yeah. Well, either way, I mean, it is something that at least they have, I don't know, a direction. I feel like not to sidebar into DC, but there is such a chasing aspect that they're just chasing trends in all of the last phase of DC. That at least I don't know. There's a game plan. I don't know. We'll see. While this has many loose wires, though, that we will definitely touch on for The Flash and Aquaman 2, I feel it has affected Volume 3 in a very interesting way. This movie, much like the aspects of the Doctor Strange sequel, really steps away from the cookie-cutter Marvel that we all know so well. I would say the qualities of this film, both good and bad, display his style perfectly, to the point that there are a lot of unappealing aspects that might turn off general audiences on this film, but are such trademarks of his directing nonetheless that it's kind of fascinating to see just how we came across with the Doctor Strange sequel. It's 100% a Sam Raimi film, and to the point of having Evil Dead callbacks and weird zombie stuff. This, in the same way, hits on such a James Gunn-ness to it that it's really incredible. I mean, I'm just surprised that Marvel got away with it or let him get away with it. And maybe it was just hey, you can't tell me what to do anymore. I don't know. It's wild. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has the same character development focus as Volume 2, but now with a team that is bigger than ever. I mean, the team is, I don't want to say bloated, but it's really big. Initially, that may not seem like it, though, because the main driver for the plot and the villain is exclusively tied to Rocket Raccoon. So guess what, Tom? Your favorite character... He's getting the spotlight.
Yeah. I mean, loosely. I'm not in love with any of these people.
Right. Out of the rankings.
He's adorable. The CGI on him actually isn't that bad. And I like Bradley Cooper. That's where it's coming from.
Right. We open the film with the team on the rocks and Rocket taking it the hardest when his past finally comes to haunt him a little bit. In a splash of action, the gang gets on the road to help Rocket and his particular biology, all while flashbacks of his past play out to set up our villain, the High Evolutionary.
Cool name.
Yeah. Played by, I'm gonna butcher this. I'm so sorry. It's Chukwudi Iwuji.
That's how. Yeah. Chukwudi Iwuji. Yeah.
All right, I'll take the points. He plays the High Evolutionary. Is honestly pretty magnetic as a villain on screen. It was nice to see this after the disappointment that Kang was. That we truly get a despicable villain.
Wow. Cool.
Oh yeah. They dedicate some serious screen time to just showing how evil he is, and I thought it was very solid. It's kind of the opposite of what Marvel villains have become, specifically in reference to Killmonger, to Thanos. Instead of empathizing with him, he is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum and is totally irredeemable. I mean, this is
pure evil, pure dark.
Exactly.
It's funny you say about the redeemable qualities of the bad guys. Mm-hmm. You're so right. They really do go for that.
Yeah, and it works in some ways. Like I said, Killmonger, Thanos works perfectly.
Thanos is a great
villains.
character. I don't like the movies, but he's a great character.
Right, right. So it works exactly for that. You kind of agree with him in weird ways, type of aspect. But here, it's a switch to the other lane, and it really works for that reason.
Was that what Kane was trying to be or supposed to be in the comics?
I don't know. Well, comics are over the place just because Kang is, I believe, a Fantastic Four villain. So we're a little bit in uncharted territory. But yeah, in general, in Quantumania, you have big sections where he's just a normal dude. He hasn't revealed how evil he is yet.
Gotcha, okay.
So, now, some may call this weaker writing and a return to more cartoonish writing, but I think it's well justified, and it pays off because he's a great villain, because with so many characters to juggle, a Guardians of the Galaxy roster bigger than ever, I thought it was a perfect fit for having a bad guy we only need to know is bad. It's like, okay, guess what? That's check the box. He's evil. We get to see him repeatedly do evil things, so that's good. And now we can focus on the huge roster of everyone getting some share of this character development that this series is known for.
Which can be such a total, and like you said, we really are hitting on a lot of characters in this one. It's tough. How do you juggle it? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Are we getting in-depth stories? And you're naturally there's going to be a hierarchy of good to bad.
Yeah.
And that's just going to happen.
Very true.
I do just want to make a note, too, because I don't think we really talked about it, but James Gunn is very much involved in the writing for all three of these.
Absolutely.
Maybe not a sole writer, but he's involved heavily.
Yep.
Yeah,
and this one, he is a sole writer. And that kind of adds to this, like, I don't know if Marvel can even talk to him anymore because he's going to the other side, but I don't know. He just kind of did what he wanted, and
if I'm DC,
I'm there for it.
I guess it's not the worst thing for DC either, because not only that, this guy knows how the place operates.
Yeah.
All DC wants at this point is like, maybe we can be as good as Marvel.
Right.
As much as people like to hate on them, they're financially successful. So it's like, well, let's just get a guy who was in the rat's nest for a little while.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And someone that at least cares about comics, I feel like that's kind of something that's foregone on the DC side.
Yeah.
Like that's a pit of a conversation, so we're just going to drop that. But yeah, when I have to review all the Snyder, now what's referred to as the Zack Snyder verse, then maybe I'll comment on that. I'll say for this third entry, it's not a critique, but it does come with some baggage. And why I say it's not a critique is just that, people used to these movies, they're going to be right at home. It's probably not going to be a non-factor, but I do think it's baggage for those that maybe are coming into this late or not huge fans of Marvel. This is the longest of the trilogy, clocking in at 2 hours and 30 minutes. This otherwise tense plot that should be a race against time feels dragged out. And I felt that was a little bit of a weaker element to the story. I would say this is also the first of the trilogy to have the infamous MCU required reading, as both Infinity War and Endgame being pivotal to characters. You absolutely cannot walk in this film and not know what's going on with that.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. And that was just simply not a case with the other two films. If anything, Guardians 1 and Guardians 2 were kind of trendsetters in that. And this seriously, and I mean, folks, seriously is pushing the PG-13 ratings. We get a fun F-bomb that is dropped, which is a great moment.
I have read it. Yep, I heard about this.
Which is good. I'm glad. You always hear about this rule that PG-13 gets one F-bomb. No one uses it, though. I'm glad that Gunn used it.
And I think it's two. I honestly think it's two now.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I do think it's two, yeah.
The reason why I say this, though, is it's pushing this PG-13 rating for some very disturbing sequences. Again, high evolutionary. He's earning this villainous role, this despicableness. So I can't say this trilogy was ever meant for small kids, especially with the focus on this nostalgia bait, music callback type of thing. But this one is especially not for the family. I would say it's a hard no-go on bringing kids to this.
Really?
Yeah.
And is it,
which is weird to say.
It's very weird to say for an MCU movie.
Yeah. It would be scary.
Because
we'd have the Yorikai coming out of the sacks type of moment.
Oh, sure. Okay. Very good. Very good. Any listeners to previous episodes don't going to know what he's talking about. That's kind of funny because I would say they're pretty heavy kids movies.
Yeah.
I get the whole thing. It's just like they're not going to relate as much to the music maybe or things like that. But the music does help with the overall feel and funness. Yeah. The movies are fun, and you have cute characters like a raccoon and a Groot or Baby Groot.
Yeah, very true.
You know what I mean?
I'm forgetting about Baby Groot.
There's kid elements about it. So So it's an F-bomb, and you're saying gore and gross out? Like, is there
gore, gross
sexual
out?
stuff? Or?
No, not sexual. It's just very intense. I would say people that are maybe a little bit iffy on animal violence might want to back away from this.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
This
Which
might
is
be my...
Who knows?
I might have to go see this.
Skip 2, go to 3.
I think that's a great point, though.
Yeah.
Because I've heard just comments and everything like that, or, is it pushing the boundary, blah, blah, blah. But that's good to get some actual
and
info on it.
It's different than just making a dark story. Not to add to the echo chamber of The Dark Knight, but The Dark Knight, yes, it's a dark and realistic story. This is kind of scary in ways, and even more scary than like Doctor Strange 2, which had like horror theming.
Right.
But this is just kind of straight up scary.
I don't know. I like that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're building up the bad, menacing guy.
Yep.
You know? Honestly, I don't know what they're going to do with Kane now since, oh my gosh, what is
Jonathan
his
Majors,
name?
I know.
We got Jonathan
Total
Major problems.
cancel.
I think,
Yeah.
and then he's going to be canceled for good.
I think it's one of those things too that Disney, even if he's absolved of all the stuff, I honestly really haven't kept up with it because it's been an avalanche.
I don't think he's going to be absolved. I think he's got the issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. So I think
I think it's the damage is done. They're already contingency plans.
agree completely.
Yeah.
I mean, are they just going to recast it, or are they going to keep this character around if he's that menacing? I love the idea that this is somewhat dark, scary, and menacing. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it's a coin flip on the whole Kang discussion, though.
It's a mess. Face
I wouldn't mind a re-roll because there was clearly not like a magnetic villain that you're going to stage the next Avengers on. So I don't know, in a world of infinite possibilities, infinite multiverses.
Well, in Phase 5, it's all over the place. I mean, one of the main stories I had in the newsletter this week was the fact that the Blade just got pushed back because of the writer's strike. And now that's probably just going to push. It's going to be a domino effect of things being pushed back. And kind of an upheaval a little bit.
I hate to say it because I like Blade a lot. That's probably going to suck. I like Mahershala Ali. He's playing Blade.
Yeah.
You
don't have hopes?
No, they're doing a PG-13 Blade. How are you going to do a rave full of blood?
Well, we'll see with Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, here we have Guardians of the Galaxy.
Very true.
Anyway, we'll keep it going.
But yeah, as for some, again, if I could cap that, that's just some loose baggage. If you're a grown adult, you're keeping up with Marvel, you don't mind the runtime, these are non-issues.
Or if you're 13 and over, it might be an actual PG-13 movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
As for actual criticism, many comic book fans have rejoiced as the inclusion of Adam Warlock, one of the most powerful characters in all of Marvel. Adam Warlock was theorized to be the linchpin of what was going to happen with Infinity War. That never came to fruition. So it really breaks my heart to say that he was very disappointing here. Vastly underpowered and easily the worst part of the film. It's kind of a half praise to say he was the only bad character in this film. I feel like everyone else was good.
Okay.
But wow, talk about a letdown. And I honestly, I don't care too much. I know fellow comic book fans, fellow nerds, they were looking forward to Adam Warlock as this powerhouse. I mean, he is we talk about top tier comic book characters.
He's in there. He's a true baddie.
Yeah. He was so underpowered and so disappointing in this. Really, really a letdown, unfortunately. Secondly, the music is all over the place, no longer constrained by just 70s theme, this late 70s theme. It comes off very sloppy and loses a bit of the charm as well. I would say there's a focus on more grungy 90s music, which has some play on what the characters are feeling, their emotion, but it feels like an odd turn in style for the last entry. We're at the last leg of the race. I don't know. Is he out of late 70s deep cuts? I mean, is it only disco left? I don't know. Redbone has to have another track. But I just feel like the licensed music in here, it was especially all over the place. And honestly, again, it at the detriment of some of the charm to what the brand is. Luckily, some positive outweigh all of that. I gotta say that this has some of the most wild sci-fi concepts I've ever seen, no less in a Marvel blockbuster. Wow. This is out there stuff. For instance, they go to a space station that is completely made of organic matter called OrgoCorp.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, wild.
I'm down.
It is some serious gross out humor, and it's kind of like a movie scaled Rick and Morty joke, believe it or not. But let me tell you, this shit is the most James Gunn thing I've ever seen. I saw this OrgoCorp. It's just like, who let him do that? Who gave him the keys? Who let him unsupervised do this? It is wild. It is out there. Just how Sam Raimi incorporated elements to make Doctor Strange true to his style. Once again, we have Marvel backing off and letting their creators run with it. And I'm here for it. I think that's a good quality. Get the parent out of the room. Get the
executive,
supervisor.
Get the producers out of there.
Yeah. And that plays into him writing this solo versus in 2, he has a team that he's working with. So this is also without a doubt some of the best fight choreography Marvel has had in a long time. There are 2 sequences in particular, one with a Beastie Boys song playing, and the other, believe it or not, is the introduction of Adam Warlock. I mean, it is really good stuff. It bumped it up a point on its own, honestly.
Okay. That's good, because I can't stand Marvel fighting.
Yeah, it's nowhere near the Marvel
garbage.
Kung Fu. And I don't know, there's just something better about the camera work. There's more of a
choreography of it all.
Yeah, the choreography, but also editing. It's kind of left on its own. John Wick principles, let it play out. We're either in a pre-John Wick world or a post-John Wick world. That's the breakdown. But I gotta say, I mean, for something that I was very take it or leave it as far as action and also Marvel style action, the action being a highlight to this, that was a nice surprise. Folks, not to disappoint, but this really had the potential to be scored much, much higher for me. Its focus on drama, unique settings, and developed action really had me liking this movie a lot. But it's very messy as well, and is such an oddball in tone that I can't help but feel Gunn will isolate some of his audiences by making exactly what he wants. Kids being isolated, non-Marvel fans being isolated, and maybe someone that just doesn't dig the weirdo style that he put on here. So I'm a little torn on the rating here, but reflecting on all 3, this really has a great send-off for the trilogy, and that's what I want to kind of end on. Characters are able to achieve a catharsis that is felt by the audience, felt on screen, and honestly, that was a secret ingredient to why these movies have always been successful and what they've always been about. We're going to go ahead and give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 a 69. Best of the trilogy.
Okay.
Best of the trilogy. But like I said, all in the same spot. All in the same spot.
You might get some hate from that.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. Okay. So, wow. But really, all that similar, all that close. Which,
yeah.
The funny thing is, it's the same director. Mm-hmm. He's writing through all 3 of them.
Right.
It's true. I mean, here's what you get.
Yeah.
But it's so all very, very similar, but this one just is slightly the best.
And maybe even going back to some of those notes earlier in the episode
of course are absurd.
I think I'll definitely get some flack of calling it the best of the trilogy. Not even as minimal as the notch, one notch up is.
Yeah, they're all very similar. They're similar in a lot of different critic worlds, kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't think not really.
But going back to what we were talking about in a little bit of the description of the scores, I mean, I think these movies are all good. Don't let a high 60 score scare you away from this. I just feel like it works in certain contexts, for certain audiences, and for me, most importantly.
Yeah,
so.
And that's what's great about the podcast. You had said it in the previous week too, where this is where just the context is great to have this podcast, because for us, a high 60s that's a pretty good movie.
That's a watch.
I would say 60, 65 is straight good movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anything above that, you're just going up from there.
Absolutely.
So 67, 68, 69, but they all are very different in ways too. Mm-hmm. That's where I love the podcast, where we can sit down and kind of hash it out a little bit.
That is true, because between these 3, they're weak and strong in different parts. And
they're weak and strong for different people watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would be best for me? I saw the first one, but it was years ago.
I don't know if 3's a watch for you. I think the gross out humor is going to... I don't know.
Is it that? But come on, it can't be that bad.
It's Orgo Corp.
I won't be grossed out, or am I going to be rolling my eyes?
I don't. Tough to say. I actually think this would be a watch for you because you'll appreciate the drama, and you'll definitely appreciate the villain.
Is the drama done well?
Yeah, actually.
Okay. I mean, I know we just did the review on it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think, but for villain alone, that's a watch for you because I think you can get behind kind of a darker spin.
Give me something realistic. So
yeah.
I would love. I don't even know last time I really loved the villain or liked the villain.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't think ever in Marvel.
Ever?
Yeah.
Wow.
I like the character of Thanos. I don't like how it was written or acted, or I don't really like the movies.
Interesting.
Tom,
just when I think I'm skirting the line on staying safe with Marvel, you just throw in hot takes like this. Folks, if you are a Marvel fan, understand it is Tom Recker.
It is me. That's true. It's me. But this was great. I love the breakdown of these, Vin. Really, really good. 69% for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Awesome. Appreciate you watching all these. Before we roll credits here, is there anything else you want to touch on? Anything for the future?
I do have some trailer notes.
Please.
Trailer
go
talk.
Okay.
Trailer trash talk. I would say I finally saw some half-decent trailers. I would say I wasn't sold on the new Dune trailer until I saw it on the big screen with good sound. Something that I think you can appreciate, Tom.
Thank you. I will make a note. I'm staying away from all Dune trailers and all information on it.
See, I would have loved to do that, but...
Well, you go to movies so much.
Yeah, I know. It's a landmine field.
Because that, honestly, I think it made John Wick 4 better for me. And that's what it's like, you know what? I just have to do... It's so difficult to not click sometimes, not just go ahead and click on it and see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And,
but if you're going to watch it anyway, don't spoil yourself.
Right. I did it for John Wick, and I think I'm going to do it again for this.
Yeah.
So you won't see much on it. Like in the newsletter, I don't think that you're going to see much of a Dune thing, because I don't want to read anything on it. But that's good that you like the trailer.
Yeah. It took me a little bit, just because I don't know, I like that first one so much, but it's looking good. And God damn it, Tom Cruise, the new Mission Impossible.
You're kidding. I heard they cut a new one. I heard they cut a new trailer.
Yep. It's a really asinine title. It's Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Why is that bad?
I don't know. Come on. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's a joke.
I will say, all the Mission Impossibles are flawed because they're named after 3.
Yeah.
They start to be named. I understand that's a problem, but like... what is it called again?
Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yeah. And I like the idea, hey, if they're going to finish out the series, it should be Part 1 and Part 2.
True.
I like that.
True.
So just say Part 1.
It is, I got to admit, it's a dynamite trailer.
Wow. Okay.
Dynamite.
There was just an article out that I went to the trailer for. There was just an article out now that it was having a John Wick problem currently, and they're saying that it more needs to be cut. They're saying it is just too long, the final cut.
Interesting.
So yes, a John Wick, they had really a 4-hour version of it,
right?
That they just had to take a machete to. They're saying that they're going to have to do the same thing to this one.
I'll put it in Part 2,
but
maybe.
It's coming down to the wire, so they got to make choices.
I mean, that movie is a legend in itself, because we get the Tom Cruise COVID rant because of this, where he's like, "We're saving the industry." It's like a Christian Bale type of rant when he's on Terminator. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. You actually have turned my opinion. Full credit to Tom.
Years in the making. Took years. I mean, my own conversion.
Yep.
I mean, I went
360.
I went from loving Tom Cruise to hating Tom Cruise back to loving Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're on board.
Yeah.
I have that. I can't wait for you to be sitting in there and watching the movie. And there will be a little me shouting in your ear, and the movie will be partially. I don't know. Have we talked about this in the theater? Where I think I have a unique ability to ruin movies in some sort of ways for you. Have we discussed this before?
For me or for yourself?
For you.
Oh, really?
Because I have a way of bludgeoning you to death over the head with certain things with movies.
Yeah.
Like take John Wayne. You can't watch Comancheros without me in the background goes. Comancheros! Right?
Which isn't even a line in the film.
I know.
Which is so great.
That you can't watch John Wayne movie Chisholm without hearing Chisholm, John Chisholm. That And you can't watch a Tom Cruise movie without me going, Vinny does his own stunts. He does all his own stunts.
He watches a movie a day. You're just like him.
Anyway, good though. You liked your trailers, which is rare.
Yeah.
I will say, last time you said this, it was only once, and it was for the Willem Dafoe movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which was what was it called? Inside.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave that an 80%.
Yeah.
That's it. Andrew and I watched that 2 weeks ago.
Really? Thoughts?
Really liked it. Really liked it.
I'm
Maybe
glad.
not 80 for us,
Sure.
but really liked it.
That's awesome.
Anyway, Vin, thank you so much for watching these movies. Thanks for coming here. Folks, we'll run it down one more time. We have High Fidelity with a 73%, Super with a 57%, Guardians of the Galaxy with a 68%, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with a 67%, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with a 69%. Folks, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you're just to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.